And good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Wednesday's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. I'm Paul Dottino. Thanks for being with us for the next hour. John Schmeelk will be joining me momentarily. As a reminder, our phone number is 201-939-4513, 201-939-4513, and we will be here for the next hour to talk New York Giants football. And, of course, you can always get an archive of this show on podcast platforms everywhere, the Giants mobile app, and Giants.com/podcasts. Of course, you are joining us from the Giants podcast studio, presented by Hackensack Meridian Health. Keep getting better. And for today's program, we're now a few days removed from the NFL draft. I wanted to go to an article that was put up on CBSSports.com by Kyle Wilson. And he basically went through each of the 32 NFL teams, and he listed the following three things: his favorite pick for each team, his best value pick of the draft for each team, and the most surprising pick in the NFL draft for each team. Now, we'll go over his selections in just a bit after we take your phone calls at 201-939-4513. My favorite pick for the draft, and Pearson Butler, our crack producer, has already made it pretty obvious who my favorite pick was because he put the video up for the whole world and universe to see, was Cam Skattebo, the running back from Arizona State, in the fourth round. Now, it's not necessarily that I liked guys better, but because the Giants got him in the fourth round, a guy I targeted for my personal selection for the Giants in the fourth round, it just so happened to be a double bullseye for me, and I talked about this guy at the Combine. When we left the Combine, I said to John, fourth round, Cam Skattebo. And he said, they'll never make it. He's going to be in the third round. He'll never make it. And if you're joining us today and haven't listened the other 2 days of the week, we finally agreed that, okay, maybe he'll be there at 99 at the end of the third round, and the Giants could get him there. Well, as it turned out, they got him at 105 at the beginning of the fourth round. So not only because I really had great hopes for this player, and I was magnetized to him, I was thrilled to see that he wound up being there at 105 at the top of the fourth round for the Giants. So it's not just about the fact that he's a terrific talent and an energizer bunny who was going to bring the intensity and the blood and guts that could really spark and inspire this offense and this MetLife Stadium crowd, but also on a personal note, because I happen to hit that bullseye twice over. So yes, Cam Skattebo is my favorite pick for the Giants in this draft. And I'm sure a lot of you folks, as you have watched the highlights in the last few days, you now understand why I was hoping that this guy would be there for the Giants for the past 3 months. Best value pick for the Giants. Now, I think this one here is got to be defensive tackle Darius Alexander in the third round out of Toledo. Smaller school out of the Mid-American Conference. Had a couple of play-up games this year. Pitt was one of them. And played extremely well, and then did real well at the Senior Bowl. The tape on him shows at about 6'4", 305 pounds, or whatever it is, give or take a little bit on the measurements. He is a Leonard Williams style of three-technique defensive tackle. That is a penetrator and a pass rush type of guy who will go downhill. He is not so much Leonard Williams of the defensive end variety, who came out of USC and then was misused by the Jets for a few years, and then came to the Giants where they finally gave him a home and decided that, you know what, forget this hybrid stuff. He truly is a three-technique defensive tackle. Darius Alexander is cut out of that mold, cut out of that cloth. And as I understand it, that's the goal. They would love to see him, if not be part of the rotation, but even potentially seize the starting job, if he's capable of doing it that quickly out of the box, to play next to Dexter Lawrence. He's not a nose tackle. He's not a defensive end. More than anything else, he is a 3-technique defensive tackle. It is my belief that this is going to allow Chauncey Golston not necessarily to move into defensive tackle, the 3-technique. I don't think he's going to see a whole ton of snaps there. I think that what we're going to see is more of Golston now playing the run-stopping defensive end, where he's going to help set the edge off of the end. I don't think we're going to see as much of Golston now as the 3-technique because of the addition of Alexander. Now, you may say to me, well, but Alexander's just one guy. And I understand that. He is just one guy. But the Giants honestly believe that they've got Roy Robertson Harris to compete at the 3 defensive tackle spot. Now, why is that important? Well, because when he was in college, Andre Patterson, the Giants defensive line coach, coached him for 2 years when he was in college, before he got to the NFL. As I now see the draft picks come into the building, it is my understanding that Robertson Harris and Alexander will be the guys who wind up splitting the playing time at the 3-technique. Alexander's learning curve for development will determine how many of those reps he gets, and perhaps even if he steals the starting job. But I do know that Robertson Harris is going to be in that 3-technique mix because they love the fact that Andre Patterson has got another chance to work with this guy. He's been in the league for a few years, and I know maybe the production has not been anything that's overwhelming or jaw-dropping or eye-opening. But Andre Patterson is a guy who, when he believes in a player, oh yeah, he'll get something out of him. And I think the reunion with Patterson, from what I can understand, is going to be very good for Robertson Harris. And so he and Alexander will give the Giants depth at the 3-technique. And that will allow Chauncey Golston to exclusively work, more so, if not exclusively, as a defensive end, as a guy who can set the edge on that end. Much like Justin Tuck used to do. And then when they decided that, well, his pass rush skills are really good, let's have him play some 3-technique as well. So this is really setting up so well for the Giants because they're going to have some versatility. And, of course, Ledbetter's in there as well, the former Jaguar, who was the backup nose tackle to spell Dexter Lawrence. The Giants have done a terrific job of adding guys to that defensive line, not to mention the whole front 7 itself, that will allow them to match up, to change, and go very multiple whenever they feel the need to do so. So I'm going to say to you folks that in terms of value pick, I think Darius Alexander, to me, is a great value pick, which will enhance the value of this front 7 tremendously. And I say best value because I'm also taking into account he's only a 3rd rounder. I can't say value pick is Abdul Carter because everybody knew he was going to be a top 3 pick in the draft. So while you will get blue chip play out of him, the value for a 3rd rounder who's going to have an impact on this front 7 makes me go to Alexander. I want to keep that in mind. Value in context, okay? When you guys call in with your name, with your names at 201-939-4513. My most surprising pick for the Giants is Thomas Fidone, the tight end. I did not think the Giants were going to draft a tight end or a wide receiver in this draft. I thought they could pick up a couple of wide receivers and a speed guy perhaps in the undrafted rookie free agent allotment. It looks as though that's what they're going to do by some of the names that have been reported. What I also thought was if they decided to bring in another tight end, that's where it would come from. So my most surprising pick is Thomas Fidone, the tight end out of Nebraska, who came via the 7th round with the Giants' first pick of the 7th round. We know about the 2 ACL injuries that kind of sidetracked the first couple of years of his career, but been very productive over the last 2 years and looks to be a very intriguing wide receiver threat. And as it's been said to me, from outside the building, someone suggested to me, a longtime scout said, he's the kind of guy who if he gets a little dinged up in training camp, you can IR him for the season, redshirt him, and give him a chance to get his sea legs, grow him, develop him, and then kind of bring him out in 2026 and see if he can truly become a part of the rotation and become a threat in the passing game. Because, let's face it, because of being derailed for 2 years by injuries in college, he does not have the kind of snaps and the kind of experience that a normal tight end who had not been hurt would come out of school with. So he's going to need some extra seasoning. And so there's nothing wrong with that if that turns out to be the case. So I'm thinking right now as it stands that Fidone and Dart are immediately the 2 guys who are most likely to be red shirts. Whether or not Bo is the 5th round choice, the offensive lineman, the swing tackle guard out of Purdue, also becomes a red shirt remains to be seen. It depends on what he shows when he hits the ground running here during the spring and during the summer. Can he interject himself into a competition to find out if he's one of the best 5 offensive linemen on this roster? Maybe he can. I don't want to put any limitations on him. I just know this. People I've talked to said he easily could have gone at least a round and maybe even 2 rounds earlier than he did. He does play with tenacity. He's got terrific feet. He's got athleticism. He can get to the outside on a pull. There's a lot to like there. So, in any event, that's the way I see it. Best value, most surprising pick, and favorite pick of the Giants draft class. With that, I open up the phones and I ask you folks if you might have an answer to those 3 questions. We go to line 1. Jeff in Maine, you're first on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Good morning.
Oh, hey, how's it going, Paul? How are you today?
Very well. How are you doing?
Oh, very happy. Loving the draft. Oh, great show yesterday, too, by the way.
Thank you.
But I think Joe Shane did it again. I give him an A+. I knew he would. And I do like the Carter pick. I was initially worried about injuries just because of what's happened over the last few years. Mm-hmm. But now I'm fine. I think actually Hunter might have been a bigger injury risk because of his small size. So I'm very fine there. And I think there's going to be no problem with playing time because for over the course of the season, you need all 3 guys playing 70% of the time. And that way they'll all stay fresh and injury-free. And, I don't see how people think there's not going to be enough playing time for all 3 guys.
Jeff, just remember this, and we've said this at different times on the program. The Philadelphia Eagles, and they don't do it necessarily with their front 7. They do it with their defensive line, not so much with their linebackers. But they do everything they can to get those guys into a rotation so that it increases their efficiency, so that the snaps that those guys are putting out on the field are at the highest of levels of production. And can you imagine if you can heighten the level of production from a Burns, from a Carter, from a Dexter Lawrence, and from a Thibodeau? Imagine getting even more impact out of those players if you can. How cool is that?
Oh, my God, exactly. And, for sure. And, I totally agree. And then I love the Jackson Dart pick. I've got a question. Do you think – I know he won't start this year, But do you think they might come up with a couple, say, RPO packages for him just to get him a couple snaps here and there?
I would think not. It's my belief that Dart would be a redshirt and that the only way he would get into a game, and it's going to involve a bunch of stars lining up, the constellations up in the sky are going to have to line up a certain way, where the Giants are either, getting hammered late in the season in a game where it's garbage time, or maybe for some reason they have a huge lead and you just want to get them a series or two. I mean, there's always the unthinkable, right? And that is the Giants have another really rough season, one loss-wise. And they start off like 0-5. And all of a sudden, before you know it, they're 2-9. And now, you start saying, well, maybe we should take a look. But then again, even with all of those things that I just mentioned, Dart's own rookie progression is going to have a tremendous impact on the Giants' impetus to put him in a game. If they don't feel he's ready, no matter what these circumstances are that we've just talked about, he's not going to get off the bench. Period. End of story. You have to go into this season saying he is a redshirt who will not play, and then worry about working backwards about certain circumstances that may prompt you to give him a few appearances. But even so, the number one requirement is going to be, is Jackson Dart ready and up to it? You remember what Eli back in 2004 when they put him in there for Kurt Warner, and it was really, really rough. And the results were really, really ugly. But Tom Coughlin knew when he put Eli in at that point that even if he wasn't prepared for the results, he knew he was prepared emotionally, psychologically, and mentally to handle that adversity. And that's going to be part of this equation too, because you have to know if you put a rookie quarterback into those situations down the stretch of the season, it may go really, really bad, just like it did for Eli. And if your young rookie quarterback is not prepared to deal with that properly, if you don't think he's strong enough to handle that and let the water wash off of his back, well, now you could damage him. So these are the kinds of things you have to think about. But I'd say going in right now, think of Dart as a redshirt.
Oh, yeah. No, I totally do. I was just thinking maybe of maybe an occasional gadget play now and then.
I would not even suggest that at all. I think that would be a very, very bad idea.
Okay. Well, then just one last comment about Joe Schoen. I guess what impressed me most is the value he got for not just the Russell Wilson signing for only $10 million, but trading up to get Dart for just the third round or whatnot. And,
2 third-rounders.
Probably a great poker player.
Yeah, it was. Consider that Daniel Jeremiah of NFL Network the day before the draft had a mock where the Giants were going to trade up from 34 to 18 with Seattle and have to give up a second rounder in 2026. Right. Well, instead of going up to 18 to get Dart, they only had to go to 25, and then they wind up only giving up a third rounder this year and next year. So I agree with you. If Jackson Dart becomes even 75% of what they hope he is, the 2 third-rounders are a steal for the Giants.
Oh, it's ridiculous. Yeah, totally. All right. Well, keep up the good work. I appreciate it. That's all I got.
Thank you so much for the call. 201-939-4513. Jay is in Phoenix, and you're next on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Hello.
Hey, Paul. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. I was calling because, and I apologize, I didn't hear the beginning of the podcast or of the show to hear what the 3 questions were.
Yeah, I figured we'd go to the CBS Sports model that was put out within the last 24 hours. Want to know who your favorite pick was of the Giants draft? Okay, who the best value pick was of the Giants draft? And then who was the surprise pick of the Giants draft?
Okay, I could do all of that.
Please do.
I could do all of that. Okay. So overall, I love the draft. I love that they have added an edge, meaning like just a grittiness throughout all 7 picks. I think that's great.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that to answer your first question, I knew Abdul Carter, if he was there, he was going to be the guy. So I'm going to go with Jackson Dart. I loved that they traded back up into the first to get him. And I really liked listening yesterday to Charlie Weiss talk about how to develop him and the things he's already bringing to the table. I think it really emphasized to me and hopefully to all the fans how important it is to understand these are kids who have a lot of growing to do. And if the coaching staff feels really good about him, then chances are they see in him what they need to be able to put a lot on his plate and see him grow.
Yeah, Jay, since the Combine, I had been saying that outside of Cam Ward, who we all knew was going to go to the Titans, that was pretty much fait accompli. Dart was my next favorite quarterback on the board, and I thought if the Giants were going to go for one, remember, I was like, if they don't take one, it's fine. That's kind of the way I lean anyway. But if they're going to go for one, Dart to me was the best fit. So you know how I feel about that pick.
And I even like that Charlie was talking about watch him come in and lead. I like the idea of having Dart lead the bottom of the roster, the practice squad, the guys that he's actually going to be lining up with. Because, Russell and Jameis are going to be with the ones and twos. Mm-hmm. You'll have Tommy and Jackson at the end. But if he can come in and help that group to perform at a high level, I think that's awesome, too. Nice competition in practices. And I don't know if it hasn't been announced yet, but I think one of the things the Giants did with him that's really smart is they added one of his receivers from Ole Miss as a UDFA. And I think having somebody who he has some instant chemistry with will really help build his confidence as well. I think that's a good idea. Plus, the player is a good player, too. That's the other thing. Anyway, so the other question, nobody's going to bring this name up, but I'll bring him up. I like Corey Black, who they brought in.
The seventh-round corner.
Cornerback.
Mm-hmm.
And, Paul, I would think, I don't know if you've seen the highlights of him
I
yet.
have.
Screaming off the edge on extra points and field goals.
Really good special teams player.
He comes off the edge, and he's blocking kicks. It's beautiful.
Yeah. When I talked to Joe Shane about him, and that interview that John and I did with Joe after the draft is up on Giants.com and the YouTube, I had asked Joe specifically, in the seventh round, so many people look for special teams guys. And Black is a really good special teams guy. But how much of his cornerback traits also went into his grade? And Joe said they liked his ability at corner and that he could compete for some defensive snaps. So this is not just a special teams pick. This is a player that they had an eye on.
Yeah, very good. And then the last one, it's not so much it's a surprise pick because of his abilities. It's because, as a Brigham Young University fan, I was 30 feet from the beatdown that Cam Scatterboo put on the Cougars at ASU Stadium in Tempe. And I did not like him, did not want him because I haven't forgiven him yet. But I'll tell you right now.
Can you do it now?
I always knew he was a good player, and I'm working on that forgiveness.
Okay, please do.
I think he's going to bring a nice edge with him and Tracy and Singletary in the backside. I'm excited for that pick now.
You said you were 30 feet. You were on the sideline?
Well, okay. I was in the third or fourth row.
Okay,
so
let me ask you a question. Could you tell?
Yeah.
Could you tell? And I know you had people around you, and again you're in the crowd, but could you tell the kind of infectious energy and intensity that he brings to his teammates on the field just by being that close to the field?
It's not just the teammates; it's the entire stadium.
Yeah.
But yes, you could see it on the sidelines. I mean, he has a swagger to him, and it's funny because he's a smaller guy too. But I've always liked the small, thick backs.
Well, he's a power back. That's how I call it. Don't worry about his height. Don't worry about his height.
Yeah.
Just call him a power back because that's what he is.
Oh yeah.
And I've likened his effect on a team to what Brandon Jacobs used to do.
Right. And, watching him play, because I watched them the same day, his highlights, and then every touch carry play that Tracy was involved in last year.
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting to compare the two and see how and Tracy's very good at breaking tackles, but with him, he's got some good power, but guys have a tendency to slip off of him, which is awesome to see.
Yeah. It's a great compliment.
They're bouncing off of him.
This is like a Jacobs-Bradshaw teammate kind of thing. It's a tag team. Like what Bradshaw and Jacobs was. That's how I see these two guys working in the Giants' backfield.
Absolutely. So anyways, very excited about the draft, hopeful for everything. I'm really excited to see. Jackson Dart was my number 2 behind Cam. As soon as Cam was not off the board, but that the Titans were taking him.
Sure.
I love Jackson Dart. I'm really excited for him.
Thank you, Jason. Appreciate it.
That's all I got.
201-939-4513 here on Big Blue Kickoff Live. We go back to the phones. That was Jay, actually. I guess we're going to Jason now, right, J-Mac? We're going to Jason now. Jay, I'm sorry I got the names mixed up on the screen. We're going to Jason in New Haven right now. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
All right, man. Good to talk to you.
Good. Yeah, I'm glad to get you again. I know I talked to you on Saturday. Few things. I heard some of the questions you had about who your most surprising picks. The pick I kind of liked was the Bow pick. Was it Marcus Bow?
Right, out of Purdue. 5th round offensive lineman.
Yeah, I mean, apparently from what I've heard over the last few months from different people that, scouts or draft gurus, quote unquote, was that he was more of a 2nd to 3rd round pick.
Mm-hmm. I've heard a round or two earlier would have been good. I don't know about 2nd round, but I've heard as high as 3rd round.
Right. I liked all the picks. Bo, to me, has a chance to play. I know he may get a red shirt, but I think he may have a chance to play depending on how things happen. Now, will I pencil him in as a starter or anything like that? No. I think going into camp in a few months, I could kind of guess who the starting 5 will be. I could be wrong, but what I like about Bo is his balance. One of the underrated traits with, especially tackles, in my opinion, are balance and agility. Right?
No doubt.
Moving laterally, right? I know a lot of times people get caught up in the traits of an offensive line. Oh, he's 6'6", he's 340, he's a mountain. And we all, I won't say everybody, but we like those traits in players.
Yeah, but Jason, as you said, what good is 6'6", 340 if it's on the ground?
Exactly, and that's some of the. And I'm not here to down Evan Neal. That's not what this call is about. But you get in love with the traits. But he has the long arms. He has the big legs, the thighs, very strong. But he lunges a lot. He's on the ground a lot. When you see this, Marcus Bow kid, his agility, his aggression, his lateral movement is very impressive for a 300-pounder. Same with Alexander. Kind of the same theme. Athletic, lateral quickness, 2 different positions, but you can see the similarities in the footwork in those kind of things.
You know what's funny, though? Alexander has, I believe, 34-inch arms. I'm pretty sure he does. So he has long arms, which you like in the trenches. Bo, believe it or not, I think was measured at about 32, which is usually frowned upon as a little shorter. But when you watch his tape, that doesn't stick out because he's got the other traits that you're alluding to.
Right, and I know people talk about, he may have to move into guard. I don't know. I think he could play adequate enough at tackle. You know what it reminds me of, Paul? And I hate to do comparisons,
Go ahead.
But just for the sake of argument, he reminds me of Zach Tom from the Packers. Right? Zach Tom wasn't a overly big player, but the same kind of build, the same kind of lateral quickness, and he's turned into a pretty good starting right tackle for the Packers. So I'm not saying he's going to turn into that. Yeah, I'm not saying he's going to turn into that, but he has that same kind of profile. The Thomas Fadone pick I liked. The one thing I've noticed with the Shane and Dable era right now, and then maybe Paul, maybe you'll agree or disagree with me. When it comes to tight ends, it seems like they really hone in on tight ends that have that high RAS score. At least in my opinion, from Bellinger to Theo.
The track record is there. Yes, the track record is there. You're correct.
So, I don't know if he'll make the team, especially with Bellinger on the last year of his contract. But apparently they see something in this kid. He catches the ball pretty good. He's a pretty good route runner. Now he has to work on his run blocking, but I think a lot of the stuff is technique and want to. And he has the frame to probably put on another 5 to 10 pounds of muscle. So that was a good traits pick. And then the Cam, I talked to you on Saturday about it. He was the surprising one, not in a bad way, because I like him as a player. Like I said, I'm a Longhorns fan, and he practically kept Arizona State in that game in the playoffs. So, not surprised because I thought, there's a running back. This running back class is so deep.
Sure.
I was surprised went that high, but apparently he was their number 1 guy on the board at that time, and I'm fine with it. And another comparison, I hate to do it. I know you brought up Brandon, but to me, he reminds me more of the other legendary running back we had, which was Bradshaw. Not a big guy, not fast, but more quick than fast. And you're not when watching Bradshaw, you wasn't bringing him down with one arm, even at his size. He was running through guys. He was very hard to bring down. And Cam kind of reminds me of Bradshaw in that way, not more quick than fast, but he's a single and doubles hitter, right? He's not a home run hitter like Saquon.
No, that's for sure.
4 yards, 4 yards.
I'll say this:
yards.
Bradshaw and Joe Morris both had incredible power below the hips.
Absolutely.
And that's how they were able to break a lot of arm tackles and to bust through defenses. Scatterbo has much more upper body strength. And I think that, to me, is the difference between – you may get the same result. You're going to get guys running through defenders. But I think the upper body strength is what separates Scatterbo from me. And that's why, to me, it was insistent that the Giants, if they go running back, which I had wanted them to, it was a power back. I was not interested in any other style of back. It needed to be a power. I know John disagreed. He was on the other side of that. But I felt the complement to Tracy was more important.
Right. And then the one last player, Paul, so I know you get to other callers. He's a UDFA, and I heard the other caller bring him up was Antoine Juice Wells, the receiver from Ole Miss that Dart played with.
Yeah, the caller brought him up. We're not allowed on the program to discuss any of the undrafted guys until they sign. Once they pass their physicals and sign, we can discuss them. Okay,
so I'll keep him on ice until,
if you don't mind. If you don't mind. And the reason becoming because those things are reports, and any of the undrafted rookies could wind up maybe verbally agreeing to a deal and then wind up actually going somewhere else, conducting a physical and signing with another team, and then all of a sudden you don't have him. So that's why we have to put that on the shelf until such time.
I understand. And then the last point, since I can't talk about, so I want to talk about Wills. I'm really hoping that this class, and like I said, like I told you on Saturday, right, these things have to be played out in training camp, preseason, and the games, right? So I don't want to get too straight to the moon with some of these projections, right? Because things happen, players sometimes don't pan out. But we'll keep positive just for the sake of argument. I'm hoping that this class, right, and I'm not saying it has to be directly like this class, but the class that came out, right, in that 2008 season with the Bradshaw, the Boss, Steve Smith, they weren't first-round picks, right?
Well, no, it was top to bottom. That 2007 draft, top to bottom, gave the Giants immediate production.
Top to bottom, but I feel like sometimes in the NFL you need to hit on some of these third-round picks.
You always do. Not just sometimes. It's very valuable.
I know, but sometimes the rate of it happening is not a high rate in my opinion.
Right.
But I'm really hoping that even for Shane, because I like Shane and I like Dable, right? I'm not, and I know the NFL is a what have you done for me in results business. I'm fully aware of that. But I think their process has been good. Have the results panned out in some of these players? They haven't, and that's fine. Mm-hmm. But the Cams, the Marcus Bowes, the Fadones, the Corey Blacks, the Darius Alexanders, these players, in my opinion, if these guys can hit, right, if they can really hit and make a real contribution, man, the sky to me is the limit because I've always said we have – now last year it didn't work out, but in my opinion, we have some talent on this team. Right? It comes down to injuries and everybody pulling together. So, Paul, thanks for taking my call, and I'll listen off air.
All right. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. 201-939-4513. John is back in.
What I missed? Sorry about that.
Well, the question of the day is, who is your favorite pick of the Giants draft? Who is your sleeper pick of the Giants draft? And who was the best value pick of the Giants draft?
Okay.
And that's what we've been doing.
Can I rapid fire it for you, mind?
Do it.
Okay. Sleeper pick is Thomas Fidone. I had a chance to talk to Marcus Satterfield, who was his OC and tight ends coach in Nebraska. That's going to go up at some point next week, I believe, on the John Soto podcast. And just spoke glowingly about the kid. And most importantly, Matt Rule, they ran a pro offense there. So they huddled NFL play calls. He played Y. He played in line. He goes, look, and remember, and Satterfield was with Rule when he was at Carolina, so he knows what the NFL is about.
Oh, sure.
So he says, look, there's going to be no issue with him contributing quickly.
Well, I hope he can.
I would not be surprised if he gets on the field much faster than a normal 7th-round pick would. He was the second highest tight end recruit in his class when he went to Nebraska. He moves really well. He's asked to block. So that's my sleeper selection.
He was mine too, but a scout told me don't be surprised if he's a redshirt for a year because he missed so much time in college.
He played the last 2 years though. Yeah, he only played 2 seasons in college. That is
got to keep that in mind.
Yeah, and what Satterfield told me, there should be no concerns about him handling things mentally. Like they said, he's a really smart kid, and coming off the ACLs, Paul, they had to pull him out of practice in the spring because he wanted to go. And you
love the attitude,
and that's just the personality. So
right.
I was already bullish on him, but I was even more bullish after I did that interview. I'm going to talk to Marcus Bose, the offensive line coach from Purdue, this afternoon. That's going to go up either next week or the following week. We're trying to book all these interviews as we go here, guys. That's my value pick. I had a 3rd-round grade on him to get him in the 5th round. You don't see guys that are 6'4" with 33-inch arms that have feet like that get to the 5th round very often. You just don't.
I had Darius Alexander.
I think that's a good fit too, but you know what though? You get a guy that you thought was a 2nd-round pick in the top of the 3rd round. All right, what, like 20 picks off? That's fine.
Yeah. I think he's going to give the Giants more snaps, high-quality snaps, certainly quicker, and who knows over the long term.
Yeah, but that's not.
Who knows?
But that's not the question. We're talking a value pick.
Yeah.
Darius Alexander will be better than Marcus Bowe this year. I have no doubt about that.
And maybe even for his career.
Correct.
So that's why I went there.
No, but that's not the question, is the value.
And you got value for me, 3rd round, to get a guy who could be an impact defensive tackle. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, you're looking for
there's
a starter.
no right or wrong here, John. It's
correct. But the reason I'm going with Marcus Bowe here is that it's very rare to find a guy that has, frankly, high-level starting offensive line traits in round 5. David Deal. It just doesn't happen very often. Now he's got a lot of work to do on fundamentals, play strength, some things like that, and there's work to do. That's why he got to round 5. That's why he's a developmental guy, right? Yeah. But to me, that's value. You just don't have traits of a guy that can play offensive tackle last that long. Whether he winds up a tackle or not, we'll see. He might end up being a guard or even a center, for that matter. So we'll have to wait and see how that goes for him. But I thought that was value.
Joe Shane said that this morning, by the way, about center. He was on with Sirius NFL Radio.
Oh, was he? Nice.
And he said this morning that they believe that Bowe has the potential possibly to become a center down the road.
Not surprised.
So it's interesting you mentioned that.
Yeah, I mean, there was talk about that at the Senior Bowl, too. Zach Tom is my pro comp for him. Remember, Zach Tom was a tackle coming out, really good athlete, but...
Caller just mentioned that.
But people didn't think he could be a tackle in the pros, and the Packers were like, no, we're playing him a tackle, and it's worked out just fine. So that will be my comp for him. And then favorite pick? I mean, it has to be Abdul Carter. I mean, okay. I love the Darius Alexander pick. I think he's going to be a really good player. But, I mean, you can get potentially a guy that's going to get 12 to 15 sacks a year for the rest of his career. How could that not be my favorite pick?
Cool.
That has to be my favorite pick. I mean,
Folks,
the guy's a monster.
201-939-4513. Let's have it. What do you got?
Let's do it. Yeah, let's go to Steve in New Jersey. He's up next. Hey, Steve-O.
Hi. How are you guys?
We're good.
I've been a lifelong Giants fan. It is the only time I've ever called anybody.
Well, thank you for calling us, Steve. What do you got?
All right. I just wanted to let you know I go back to Chuck and Charlie Connolly, so it's way back.
Yet another Ole Miss quarterback, Steve.
Indeed.
Yes. I have a couple of comments. First of all, I'd be curious, as far as your opinions are concerned, how this new Giant team with the new draftees is going to affect, or hopefully affect, the almost given losses in the NFL East against Philadelphia and Dallas. It almost seems like it's a 0-4 start, a 0-4 record that they have against those teams. They just can't get by. And now with the new quarterback in Washington, I don't even know if that's going to add to it. But that's one question: is how do you think the new draftees are going to affect that given, breakthrough at least, that given start that the Giants have to have in the last number of years.
What's your second question, Steve?
Go through my questions and then get off.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that works.
All right. The second one is I was very impressed with Scadaboo, or however you pronounce it.
No, that's right. You got it right.
All right, and I was wondering. I read that his combined running and pass catching was the second in his last year. This was the second total to the number one rated back. And why is that? Why did that not influence more people? Why did he end up going in the fourth round? To me, that was a very impressive record, and I think he's going to be somebody who is going to be popular for the Giants fans. I even read where he threw a touchdown and even kicked some field goals. So this guy is quite an amazing guy. And my last comment, seems to me that by now the Giants should realize that Neal is not going to be a tackle. It seems like he just doesn't have the speed initially to stop the faster rushers. They just go by him before he can do anything. And why? But he, on the other hand, he's big enough and apparently skilled enough to be quite a good guard. And why it's taking so long for them to try him at that point, at that position. So those are the questions that I've had. And I'll just listen to you guys. I'll leave now and listen.
No,
to
thank you, Steve. Great call. Don't be a stranger. Please call back. We'd love to hear from you again.
A lot like Bill Polian, didn't he?
Yeah, a little bit actually.
Wasn't that cool?
It was a little bit like Bill Polian. You're right. All right.
3 points.
Yes. Well, I guess we'll work backwards.
Okay.
One on Evan Neal. It sounds like they're going to start working him at guard this offseason. Now, he'll do a little bit of both. I'm sure he'll back up both spots, but they're going to start working him at guard. And like I've been, guys, I have not been like hiding about this. I think he has a chance to be a pretty darn good guard. Mm-hmm. Like I'm even more optimistic about him going to guard than I was about Flowers going to guard back in the day. Much more optimistic. So
better attitude for sure.
Well, I think that's a big. That's a big part of it, right? So, yes, I think they will, and I hope he is given a chance and he has a chance to succeed there because I think Evan Neal cares. He's a good dude, and I think he has a chance to be a good guard in the National Football League. That's question number one. Question number two, Cam Scadaboo. So, correct. Last year, Ashton Genty was third all-time since 1956 in collegiate yards from scrimmage. He had 2,739. Well, Cam Scadaboo all-time is 14th at 2,316, and he was second last year. And that's what I think gets me excited about Scadaboo. Johnny Mac, you can scream one more if you want, a couple more, is that he's a bruiser between the tackles, Paul, and we love that part of his game. He breaks a ton of tackles, but that dude can catch the football, man. He can catch the football. He's a good receiver out of the backfield. He's a good football player. So that gets me excited about him. And the reason he dropped as far as he did was, I think, A, people wonder with his running style, how long is he going to last? Because he just, takes such a beating because he loves physicality so much. Go back, I'm going to sound like Paul now. Go back to Earl Campbell, right? Earl Campbell was maybe one of the best running backs in football for 5 or 6 years. And then his legs pretty much fell off.
The crash test dummy thing does come into play sometimes.
No, it's real.
Absolutely.
It's a real thing. Now,
Absolutely.
Some guys can survive that, but Cam Scadaboo is also not 245 pounds.
No.
He's 220, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's not small for a running back now, but it's not 240 either, right? So
the fact that his frame's a little bit shorter will help him some.
He's stockier.
It'll
be tougher for guys to get a good hit on him because he runs low.
That will help him, but it doesn't mean necessarily that he's oblivious to it.
I'm 1,000% with you on that. So that would be the Scadaboo question, and then the first question,
the speed thing too.
Oh yes, and I didn't say the speed. That's my bad.
The speed would knock him down.
He ran in the 4.6s. So
he gets caught from behind on long runs. He just does,
and he doesn't pull away from people.
No,
he's explosive. He's strong. His short area stuff is excellent, like Joe Shane talked to us about on the draft show, which is the more important, on the draft interview you did with him, which is the more important stuff, by the way. But it's the top speed, and people looking for burners now.
Yeah,
so
he'll take good angles to make guys miss, but downfield, 40 yards downfield, he's going to get caught, John.
Yeah, for some people, it might be a 60-yard run. For him, it might be a 25-yard run, and that's the difference.
And there are a lot of teams who are going to favor that speed factor. And then the other thing is, can he complement what you have in the room?
Yeah.
And the Giants had a need for this type of guy. So, anyway.
And then, no, I think, honestly, I forgot I didn't mention it, Paul. Excellent point. And then number 1, NFC East. NFC East is really good. It's either the second or third best division in football. It could be the best. I mean, you're looking at the NFC North, which just doesn't have the thing about the NFC North, it just does not have a bad team in it. The Bears had a bad record, but they were not a bad team last year.
No,
they were not a bad team. So they're good top to bottom in the NFC North. The AFC West has become very good now, especially with the Raiders adding Geno Smith, who's a competent quarterback.
Sure.
Sean Payton's in Denver. Jim Harbaugh's with the Chargers. Andy Reid's with the Chiefs.
That's a tough division.
List the head coaches. Just list the head coach. And Pete Carroll's in Vegas.
Yeah.
Those are 4. I mean,
I know.
3 of those guys have a chance to be Hall of Famers.
Agreed. I'm just so glad the Giants aren't playing.
Sean Payton, Andy Reid, and Pete Carroll all have real chances to be NFL Hall of Fame coaches.
Oh, man.
And they're all in the same division.
No, I know.
And if Bo Nix keeps progressing, and we'll see, 1 year does not, a quarterback make. You could have 4 good quarterbacks in that division, too.
At least the Giants only play 2 of those teams instead of 3. Like, if they were in that division, they'd have to play all 3 of them.
Correct. Well, I mean...
They're not playing Kansas City this year.
Yes, they are at home. They play for all 4 teams this year.
Oh, my...
They
are playing Kansas City.
Yeah. They play the
Great
AFC
year.
West.
Great year to be playing the AFC West. You're right.
And by the way...
I'm looking at it now.
The 3 divisions I just mentioned could be the best in football?
Oh, yeah. They're all on the Giants' schedule.
The Giants play all 3 of them.
That's right.
So that is 14 of their games. Just wanted to throw that out there for fans.
I forgot about Kansas City coming here.
Yeah,
I've remembered the Chargers and the Broncos, but I forgot Kansas City was coming here.
And the Giants travel to Vegas. So, yeah.
It'll be good to see Spags again.
It will be. And then the other division that's really good is the AFC North. That would be the other division. Those to me are the 4 best divisions of football. The AFC North, again, you have the Browns in there, which kind of drags it down a little bit with their quarterback situation, but the other 3 teams are all excellent. So, good times.
To the caller's point, Philadelphia drafted well. We believe that Dallas drafted fairly well. And Washington, with the trade getting Deebo Samuel and Marcus Lattimore, even though their draft, they didn't have a lot of picks, they made some trades.
I mean, but we like Josh Connerly at the end of round 1. And we like Trey almost at the end of round 2.
So the whole, good picks. The whole division probably got better.
Yeah, the NFC East right now is very well run, and that's a problem. I mean, the Cowboys have always drafted well. Say what you want about what Jerry Jones does in free agency and, waiting to sign guys and all that stuff. But they've always been a good drafting team. They won, 12 wins 3 years in a row.
I know.
Recently.
I know.
Eagles, they've been to a bunch of Super Bowls, and now the Commanders all of a sudden look like they're a really well-run organization. So
remember one thing, though? Those teams seem to have stocked up a bunch of wins against the Giants. That helps.
Well, I mean, to Steve's point, the Giants, he says, every year you're kind of 0-4 against the Cowboys and the Eagles. He's not wrong about that.
No.
And now they were 0-2 against the Commanders last year.
It's time for that to start to change.
Well, it has to.
It absolutely has to.
Has to. All right, we got 2 more calls. Let's get them both in. Let's go to Cliff in New York. Cliff, you're up next, pal.
Hey guys, how you doing?
We're great.
This is great stuff, man. My surprise pick was the whole day 3, because after lighting up the way they did on days 1 and 2, I said, well, I guess we'll just who else do they need? Who else could they possibly use? And then it starts off with Scatterboo, and when I looked him up a little bit, I had never seen his film. And he reminded me of Travis Etienne, so I looked up the size, and he's got 10 pounds on Travis, and I don't know about the 1-inch height, if that makes a difference. So if Etienne was not good for us to be facing in our division last year after coming over from the AFC West, and I'm very excited about him.
Cliff, hold on. I don't think you mean Trevor Etienne. Do you mean Austin Eckler?
Yeah, different guy.
I think you're right.
Different guy.
You're right. The guy that came from San Diego that became LA.
Yes, that's Austin Eckler,
Yes.
and they're. I mean, I think Scadaboo is a much more physical running back than Eckler.
Yeah,
is.
that they're
Right, but
not the
Now,
same.
I think stature-wise, height-wise, and they can both
Yeah.
catch the ball. And Eckler also ran in the 4.6s, so that's all correct. But Scadaboo is a more physical running back
different
than Eckler would
frame
be.
and different
Yeah.
style.
Eckler relies on his quickness more than Scadaboo does.
Absolutely.
But Scadaboo looks as quick as Eckler.
Close. I'm not sure if he's quite that quick, but he's close.
Yeah.
We're close enough to make me think, is that guy? All right. Either way, within the room of the running backs, I think, well, I guess he takes, Cam takes some running play snaps away from last year's fifth-round hero.
Tracy?
2 years ago, Eric Gray, you mean? Oh, Tracy
Yeah,
from
Tracy.
last year? I mean, look,
Yeah.
I mean, Tracy and Scadaboo, and then you could throw Devin Singletary, who I'm sure they're still going to try to utilize in some way. They're gonna split the carry. So Tyrone Tracy fantasy football owners might not be happy, but it's going to help the Giants.
Cliff, they don't have a
Absolutely.
single back on this roster who's going to carry the ball 25 times a game. They just don't.
I mean,
That's not the way it's going to
Right.
be.
it might even get to 18. You know,
it's not going to be.
Yeah.
That wasn't,
in other words,
that
there's no
wasn't
bell
the way
cow.
It was in Buffalo when they first started to get really good either, was it?
no. And Cliff, we talked about this. There's only 6 or 7 teams in the whole league that have one bell cow running back down. 6 or 7 teams in the whole league. That's it.
Well, but I was also thinking of the touchdown that I'm blanking out on his name. The last year's fifth round, we
Tracy.
just named him again. Tracy. In the Indianapolis victory, he catches a touchdown pass in the back of the end zone, and when I remember looking at that, I say, "Boy, he sure looked like a wide receiver on that play."
Well, he was.
You know.
Well, I mean, Cliff, that's why.
So maybe we see more of him that way, out of the backfield. And does that change when you guys talk about that 11 thing? You know how many wideouts are on the field? There's another wideout in the backfield.
Now, yeah, Cliff, appreciate the call. Look, yeah, Tracy was a former wide receiver in college, as we know, and he can catch the football. And what I love about this running back combination, even though their styles are a little bit different in terms of how they run it, they can both do everything. So this is not like, all right, well, Tracy's going to be on the field for first and second down and Scadaboo on third down, or Scadaboo's going to be your early down back, Tracy on third down. You can literally just rotate series. Yeah. Like, all right, this is a Scadaboo series. And all right, if he happens to carry it 6 or 7 times and he needs a breather, then you can bring Tracy in.
Sure.
But you can literally just hand the series to either guy because they can handle running, they can handle receiving, they can handle pass protection, they can run inside, they can run outside. They can do everything, both these guys. And so can Singletary, to be honest with you. So you can literally just split up the game into series and say, all right, this is a Scadaboo series, this is a Tracy series, let's rock and roll.
I'll tell you one thing I don't think we'll see, John, and I'm pretty sure you're going to be on board with me on this.
Scadaboo is a punter.
No.
He did punt it like 12 times. That's why I make the joke.
I know. Somebody had tweeted me and suggested that why don't we see more snaps of Tracy as a wide receiver?
No.
And I said, no, that's not going to happen.
I mean, you could both. I mean, look, they did like putting Singletary and Tracy on the field last year
You
together.
could go empty backfield.
Right.
And possibly get him out there.
Or you could do Pony and you could put both guys in the backfield.
But I don't see Tracy lining up as a receiver. No, not as a standard receiver.
No,
I don't see that happening.
I agree with that.
You know, they made him a running back for a reason. He's a running back here.
Well, I mean, yeah, he was made of. I mean, he wasn't exactly a productive wide receiver at Iowa. Then again, Iowa doesn't create many high productive wide receivers because they don't tend to throw the ball very well at Iowa. But that is what it is. All right, let's wrap things up with John in Staten Island. John, you're on Big Blue Kickoff Live. How are you, pal?
Good. First of all, I just wanted to thank you guys for the great work you've done over the last couple of weeks. It's been outstanding.
Thank you, John.
I've gone to other teams' websites, particularly Cleveland, to see what they were thinking about before the draft. They have nothing on their websites. We are so lucky to have you. Not even believable.
Well, John, thank you. I appreciate that.
You're
That means
very
a lot.
kind.
It means a lot. It
Very
really does.
kind.
Thank you.
Second thing, for anybody who's not in favor of Jackson Dart coming to the Giants, watch the Manja cast with with Charlie Weiss and Bob Papa, two guys who Giant fans should certainly trust.
Well, John, you don't have to go to the ManjaCast. Just tune in to Big Blue Kickoff. Just tune in to
interview.
Yeah.
Was great.
There you go.
I listened to it 3 times already.
Thank you.
Wow. How about that?
And then thirdly, go on YouTube and look up the John Gruden spot that he did with Jackson Dart. And if that doesn't convince you that John Gruden doesn't know a good quarterback when he sees one,
right?
I think you need to move to Portland, Maine.
Now,
Portland, Maine?
That's funny. Well, you don't understand the joke.
Oh, you're our friend.
That's went right over your head. Jeez,
It did.
Paul, you got to be a little bit quicker
It
than
did.
that. dude.
It took about a half a second too long to get to the
That was
receptors.
like 3 seconds it took you to get to the receptors.
Yeah. Anyway.
The 2 things that do still concern me, though. One is we draft well, but one of the things Gruden said was when a wide receiver, when somebody, what he was talking about was illegal motion or offside. But anyway, he was saying that if an offensive lineman moves before the snap, it's not only the offensive lineman's fault, it's the coach's fault. How we could line up a receiver 5 times offsides last year is concerning to me. I kind of wonder where the coach is after 3 times. I'm glad they changed the receiver, the defensive back coach, because I thought that was a weakness. And so, anyway, I think that Joe Shane needs to think about development and player development a little more as we move along. He seems to have the draft thing down pat. Let's move on to now developing these players so that they play above their draft level. And the third thing is let's seriously take a look at all of the other teams and how they handle injuries and physical training. Somebody's at the top of the list. Somebody has the least amount of injuries in the NFL. What are they doing that we're not? Because we cannot continue to have good teams if we're always injured. Anyway, that's my comments for today. Guys are great. I love you. I'll take the rest offline.
Awesome. Thank you, John.
Have a great day.
Now, the Giants' soft tissue injuries weren't that bad last year.
No,
they
weren't.
had a lot of structural stuff. And I'm not going to go nuts on the Andrew Thomas thing. That's a freak injury at the start of the year where he's sprinting. You know, no one's training an offensive tackle to sprint 40 yards. That no one's training them that way. So that was some bad luck.
Right.
But the Thibodeau injury was a broken hand. I mean, like wrist, whatever it was. I mean, you know, what are you going to do about that?
And by the way, this team for years.
And what was Neighbors' injury at the end of the year?
Neighbors at one point had a concussion.
It was a concussion. That's what kept him out. That's right.
I mean, what are you going to do?
That's right. Correct.
But I think it's important to note that for years the Giants have been snake bitten with injuries. This goes back not just 1 or 2. This goes back at least a half a dozen, and they have gone through every study that you could possibly find from here to Timbuktu.
Yeah.
And you know, so don't think it's for lack of trying, because they have really dug deep to find out what they could do that might enhance the health of this team. And they go through it every offseason.
Yeah, they do. I'm with you. But look, last year they did make some. They've had people coming in and out in terms of like strength and conditioning and stuff like that, and they have moved people in and out of that group. So I think they got back to what was working a few years ago when they really had a downtick, Paul, in terms of soft tissue injuries, and I think that will help moving forward as they try to revamp some of that in terms of what they're doing. So I think they're on the right path there, to be honest with you. We'll see as they move forward if that ends up being the case. But Aaron Wellman is a guy who did a really nice job when he was here the first time before he went back to Indiana. And they did cut their soft tissue stuff way down when he was here the first time. Well, he returned last year, and I think you saw another downtick in the soft tissue stuff. You're never going to hurt. You're never going to save knee injuries if a guy gets rolled up on. You're never going to save ankles. That was Runyon, right? Wasn't Runyon an ankle at the end of the year? Like, he got rolled up on. It happens.
Dexter's elbow. What are you going to do?
Yeah, it got hyperextended when he got caught in a pile. Like, there's nothing you can do about that sort of stuff, right?
No.
The soft tissue injury stuff, yes, there are things you can do. Like the endless, like Azeez Ojulari, like did he have the calf injuries last year?
No.
He did not, like he had a couple years ago. So I think they're on the right path with that. And you keep your fingers crossed because you can do all the right things and guys can still get hurt.
That's right. It's a tough game.
It is what it is.
And as far as the assistant coaches, I want you to understand something too. Player development is not just on the coaches, it's also on the players too. They have to be receptive to everything that they're being taught. They have to understand it. They have to have the desire and the willpower to go through and follow all the directions. So, I'll be honest, Jerome Henderson, who, has since left the Giants now, the change was made there. You and I both agree, John, he's one of the finest DB coaches that we've ever known.
Yeah, he's very good.
And, so don't necessarily automatically knock the assistant coach for whatever disconnect there may have been there. It doesn't always go on him.
And remember, too, he wasn't one of Shane Bowen's guys either. He's somebody that Shane Bowen inherited when he got here.
And coordinators are always entitled by the head coaches to name as many staff members as they want to.
Well, remember, Henderson was up for that defensive coordinator job, too. And then he got the passing game coordinator, right? Is that he got he got bumped a little bit there. So, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I think Carmen Brasillo is a really good developer of talent on the offensive line.
Looks like it.
Mike Groh's been great at wide receiver. I think we have a lot of respect for the job he does out there. So, and of course, Andre Patterson is one of the best defensive line coaches in the whole league. So
big time.
And look what Eggs John Agrogu has done with Micah McFadden, helping him come along as a player at linebacker. So, I do think they have some good developmental coaches. We saw last year's class and how they've developed.
Oh, look at Tracy. Now, Joe Thomas left.
Correct.
But, look what Tyrone Tracy did. They converted wide receiver, and he was darn good.
And if there's one thing Iowa cranks out, it's running back prospects. And that's where Liddell Betts came from.
Exactly.
They can't pass the ball, like I mentioned, but they can run it.
And that is the Liddell Betts who played for the Washington then Redskins.
That's correct.
So you know what he's all about.
Yes, correct. And Tim Kelly is an excellent tight ends coach.
So it's good staff.
Yeah.
So please be careful when you talk about the development. There's a lot of factors that go into that.
And again, from those first two Joe Shane draft classes, have guys not developed as quickly as maybe some people would have liked? We totally get that. We understand. But that could be player-related, coach-related. It could be both, depending on what the situation is. We're not going to make those value judgments. But, yeah, look, you have to draft and develop well in order to be successful in the National Football League. So, all right, everybody, thanks for being with us. Did you plug the Giants Huddle podcast at all?
Not yet.
Okay, make sure you guys go check it out. We have our second part of our draft review, draft season podcast up. Make sure you guys go check that out. It's on the draft season feed, the Huddle feed, Giants YouTube channel. It's broken up to NFC, AFC, and then the AFC version also has Tony's favorite picks and best players available, left for undrafted free agents, stuff like that. So go check that out. That's on the draft season feed and the Huddle feed. Is the audio of the interviews up yet today, Pierce, or not yet? Okay, so later on today, we're going to have all the audio. This is audio only on the Giants Huddle feed of all the first night drafted player interviews from O'Hara and Madeline put together into an episode. That's going to be really good. I shuffled around on what order I'm going to have them posted, and I think I'm going to shuffle them again. It's much to Pearson's delight in terms of what's coming up next. But I do know the two interviews this week that are going to go up. We're going to have Ryan Wilson from CBS Sports will go up at some point this week, and then Chase Daniel, former NFL quarterback, who's with The Athletic now and Fox Sports. Recording that today, wedging it in while my daughter's at a basketball clinic. So I drop her off at the basketball clinic, run home, do the interview, run back out to the basketball clinic to pick up my daughter.
Do you have something to do before Game 6 of the Knicks series?
On Thursday? Absolutely not. My schedule is surprisingly clear.
Yeah.
And that is not a mistake.
And it's much to both of our dismays, I might add.
But I'm actually really excited to talk to Chase. If you guys go on his Twitter feed, and I'll retweet this after we have him on. He has a nice 15-minute breakdown of Dart on there already.
Oh, good.
So I'm gonna rewatch that. I had watched it previously, and we'll do that interview today. That's gonna be a lot of fun. I've Kurt Warner coming up next week, talking about Jackson Dart 2.
Oh, he finally booked it?
We're recording that tomorrow. And that'll go up at some point next week.
Love Kurt.
I'm working on Dan Orlovsky as well, hoping to get him next week at some point. We already have, I mentioned Thomas Satterfield, the tight ends coach from Nebraska. That'll go up at some point. And then I'm having, like I mentioned, Marcus Johnson, who was the offensive line coach for Purdue last year. who coached Marcus Bowe. He's coming up. Oklahoma State, actually, during the show, just got back to me. I think I'm going to get Coach Gundy from Oklahoma State, their head coach. We'll talk about Corey Black. So we're working on all this. We're going to try to do 2 or 3 episodes a week as we move forward through May. The week before and after Memorial Day will just be 2 because we're only in here 4 days. So we'll do 2 those weeks. Otherwise, we'll try to keep getting 3 out there as we continue to look at the Giants' draft classes. So for Paul Dottino, I am John Schmeelk. Good job, Johnny Mack. Good job, Pearson Butler. I'm going to go eat some lunch before I got to do this Marcus Johnson interview in 23 minutes. And we'll it'll be Sitak and Dottino the rest of the way this week on Big Blue Kickoff Live on 12:30. Make sure you guys go check that out. They will, of course, be in the Hackensack Meridian Health Podcast Studio. Keep getting better. So stay tuned tomorrow for another episode of Big Blue Kickoff Live presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the Giants.